In this complete course, we are going to talk about GSAP. GSAP is currently the most popular library for animating HTML elements. Nowadays, you'll find it on almost every website because it's super easy to use and incredibly user-friendly. You can make amazing website animations from basic to advanced with this library. The best feature is you can use any CSS property you like to animate. There is no limitation. With the help of GSAP, you can make animations like flip, motion path, scroll animations, drag and drop, text, and more. To get a good handle on how these animations work, we need to start with the basic GSAP examples. So let's dive in together. Now let's first talk about the different ways to install GSAP in the web framework. For instance, if you're using React, you can easily use GSAP with this npm install GSAP command, or you can use yarn add GSAP. If you want, you can use the CDN. You have to just add this script inside your .html file and you're good to go. Or you can download the GSAP zip file and use it locally in your project. In this course, we are using CDN to use GSAP. So let's open the VS Code and open empty folder inside it. How about we start by setting up a folder named GSAP inside this tuition. So if I create here a folder GSAP, and inside this folder we'll create three essential files. First is index.html, second is style.css, and third script.js. That's about you. You can specify any name to these files. Now let's back to the index.html and create a simple HTML file snippet here. I'm going to name the title GSAP, and then inside a body, as I said, to use GSAP, you need to include this script inside your .html file. So I'm going to copy this and paste it right down here. And just out of the script tag here, I'm going to import my .js file. So I'm going to say here script. In the source, I'm going to specify my script.js file. And at the top here, I'm going to link my style.css file. Just like this. And inside this index right here, I'm going to create an examples. So first, I'm going to create here a division tag with a box class. Just save this file back to the style.css. The style.css is currently empty. No worries. Let's go ahead and add some awesome code inside the script.js file. So here we need to first ensure the DOM element is completely loaded. So to make sure the DOM element is completely loaded, I'm going to add here first the command and say make DOM completely loaded. So to make sure DOM is completely loaded, I'm going to call a document dot add event listener, and then here we need to specify the type. So we're going to call here a DOM content loaded, and then in the listener here we call the callback function. So we call here event like this, and inside this document right here we are going to call the GSAP code. So this DOM content loaded event, which triggers when the initial HTML is fully loaded and parsed without waiting for style sheets, images, or subframes to load. Now when you start working with GSAP, you will get a GSAP object from this CDN or from your package. So if you call GSAP, then this is your main tool for using GSAP. It's a simple object with methods and properties to create and manage twins and timelines, which are the key concepts of GSAP. This object has different properties. Now there are two important key concepts of GSAP. First is twins, second is timeline. So let's start with twin. A twins handle all the animations. It's like a powerful tool for changing properties. You give it the object to animate, set a duration, and specify which property to change. As it runs, it calculates the values for these properties at each point in time and update them. There are three common methods you can use to make animations. First is GSAP2, second is GSAP from, and third is GSAP from to. Let's understand this method with a simple example. As you know, inside this index.html, here we have a division tag. And now we are going to first style this division tag inside the style.css. I'm going to add here a command style.css, and then I'm going to say body. I'm going to specify some background color, and I'm going to select the box class, this HTML box class, and then specify some properties here. So width is going to be 130 pixel and height is going to be 130 pixel. And then I'm going to specify some margin. So margin top is going to be 5 rem, and then add some border and background color, just like this. And at the end, I'm going to specify the transform translate x 0. Now let me save this and start the development server. I'm using this live server extension to launch the local development server. So I'm just going to right click here and click on open with live server. This is going to start the local server inside the browser. Let me toggle this like this and back to the script file. Let's see how to animate this box using two twins. So inside this DOM loaded event right here, we call GSAP, you have method called to. And to this to method, you first specify the target element. As you know, we have this box. So we specify this targeted element as a first argument, just like this. And this is a type of class. So we pass here dot box. And just out of that, I'm going to pass here a comma and then specify different variables. Inside this object, you specify your animation properties. So just for now, I'm going to pass here x 300. Then specify here comma, duration. Duration is going to be 3. And ease is going to be back. That's it. Let me just zoom this a little bit out. Let me save the changes. Let me zoom this out as well. And now when I reload the browser, you can see I'm going to have this animation. This to-twin is super popular in animation because it lets you to specify the end value, making your animation journey smooth and delightful. It will begin with right from where the element currently is that we specify in the to method. If you look at the GSAP2 method, then it consists of two parameters. First is target and second is variables. So to the first parameter, you specify the properties you want to animate. This can be a class selector or ID selector. You can select class with dot and with hash you can select IDs. And inside this variable, you specify the object, an object containing all the properties and values you want to animate, along with the special properties like ease, duration, delay, and all the methods of to. Now this X property is a short form alias of translate X. So this is going to move the element 300 pixel to the right side. You can also give it a little twist by adding some rotation to the square. So if I add here rotation 20 and save the changes, this is going to rotate this box. GSAP is super smart and handle the starting values for you. No need to worry about setting those yourself. GSAP isn't just a CSS properties or DOM object. So feel free to get creative and experiment. You'll be amazed at how many things you can animate effortlessly with GSAP. You can rotate this 360 degree as well. You can also add translate Y here. The alias of translate Y is just a Y property. If we add here Y 300, then this is going to move this box to the downside. You're not limited to just use the transform property. You can use any property of CSS, just like the background color. So let's suppose that if I change the background color and if I specify here background color, save the changes, then this is going to change the background color as well. You can apply any possible CSS value inside this to method. That depends on your imagination. There are different easing you can use with GSAP. So if I use here elastic, save the changes, you can see we have a different easing method to this box. Now with this selector, you are not limited to select only a single element. You can select multiple elements as well. So if I duplicate this, save the changes, you can see you can animate multiple elements at the same time. Now let me show you how you can control this animation. Let me get it out of these divs. Let me show you how you can control these animations with GSAP methods like pause, restart, progress, and start. So if I add a buttons here, a bunch of buttons right down here, just like this, the play, pause, resume, reverse, and restart button. Let me save the changes. I'm going to have this button right down here. Let me add styling to this button inside this style.css. I'm going to add some styling, and then inside the script tag here, I'm going to get rid of this Y property and I'm going to specify here rotation 300. X is going to be 300. I'm going to increase the duration and then I'm going to get rid of this background property. When I save the changes, I'm going to have this animation. But now let me show you can control this animation with these buttons. So to control this, you have to just store this to-twin inside a variable. So here if you say let twin 2 is equal to, that's upon you, you can specify any name to this variable, and right down here, I'm going to add here controllers. So here we first say document query selector, and inside this, here we add ID. So as you know, we have these buttons. So we use these IDs to select this button. The first is a play. So we select the play. And when we click on it, we call here onClick is equal to, and then call here a callback function. And to this callback function, we call tween2.play. And I'm going to do the same for all the buttons. So I'm going to select the pause, resume, reverse, and restart button right from this index file. And then I'm going to call the tween methods. Let me change this variable. When I save the changes, we are going to have a simple animation. But now we can pause, reverse, and restart this animation using these buttons. When I click on restart, it will restart this animation. With play, you can play this animation again. With resume, you can resume this animation, or with pause, you can pause this animation. And then I can use this resume button to resume this animation. Or I can reverse this animation with this reverse button. You can notice this is going to reverse this animation. So with these methods, you can control the animation. Let me get rid of this, get rid of these buttons as well. Now let's suppose that you want to make a delay in the animation. Then you can use a delay property. So if you add here a delay, 2 seconds, save the changes, then that is going to start the animation after 2 seconds. That will make some delay in the animation. If I restart this animation, then you will notice this will start the animation after 2 seconds. This delay property defines how long would you like to wait before the animation starts. I'm going to get rid of this property. Let me show you some easing values. Let me change the duration to, if I change this to back, then we have a easing back animation. You can change this to elastic as well, or you can change this to power 3 out, just like this, power 3 2, and power 1 out. If you want, you can say here scene out, a simple easing for this box, or you can say here steps 12. So we'll get 12-step animation, just like this. Or if you want, you can add here a slow animation, just like this. So there are different easing methods you can use with GSAP. You can also call here onComplete function. So if I call here onComplete, pass here a function just like this, and just console.log a value. So if I just print here animation completed, so once the animation is completed, you will get this console message. So you can do all the heavy lifting inside this function as well. Or you can use the repeat property to repeat the animation number of times. So you can call here repeat 1. So repeat 1 would play the total of 2 iterations. This is the first one and this is the second one. And if you want to make the infinite animation, then you can pass here -1. Now the animation won't stop. And if you pass here run backward, this is going to be true, then the animation will invert its starting and ending values. You can notice the animation starts from here and end right here. Now this is some basic understanding of the GSAP to method. So once we understand the basics of to method, let's understand from and from to method of twins. Let's talk about the twins from method. Let me comment this. We say GSAP dot from. Now imagine from as a super fun way to animate things into your screen. You get to decide where the values should start and then it smoothly bring them to their current state. It's like a magical entrance of your object. Set them up exactly how you want them to look at the end and then watch them animate it from wherever you choose. The from twin is just like to. You first specify the selector and then you specify the variables. You can use any CSS variables to from. Here we specify opacity, then the X value is going to be 300 and duration is going to be 2. When I save the changes, you will see this animation. Right now, the box element is set to translate 0 and the box don't have any opacity property. So the GSAP automatically consider that this box has opacity 1. Using the from method, we will animate the element and smoothly move it to the current state. So it will start from right and move to its current state. You will notice the from method has the same parameter as two methods. From also have the same start, pause, restart and seek functions, which we learned previously. Now you might ask, what is the difference between to and from? The to method use the current state to start the animation, and the from method use the current state to end the animation. Next, we have from to. As the name suggests, the from to twins lets you define both the starting and the ending values of animation. This is great for having full control over an animation, especially when it is chained with other animations. So to use from to, we call GSAP and then call from to. And this from to has a slightly different parameters. First is your targeted variable, second is the from variable, and third is your to variable. So the second is this from variable and this third is the to variable. So inside this from, you need to specify the properties you want to the element. So let's suppose that if I specify here opacity 0.2 and x value is going to be 0, then this is the initial position of this box. And then I'm going to move this box to the right side. So I'm going to copy and paste this right here and then change this opacity to 1 and x value is going to be 300. And right here, I can also pass duration to and save the changes. Now here, I'm going to pass the starting and the ending value of the animation with this from to twin. So this is the starting value and this is the ending value of this animation. Now to this from to, you can use any variables and methods like start, pause and reverse. That's upon you. And there are lots of things you can do with this method. Just experiment with CSS properties and you will get your animation completely ready. Now let's dive in one of the most cool fundamental concept of GSAP, a timeline. A timeline is a container for twins. It's the best tool to help you arrange your animation exactly how you like them. Think of it as a go-to way to keep everything in sync and running smoothly. To create a timeline, you create your variable and call a timeline method. So you first create a variable. This could be a constant variable or let timeline. So we call here TL is equal to GSAP and then you specify timeline. GSAP platform is object oriented. So you can call two methods from the timeline object as well. So if I add here TL.to, then I can animate this box with this to twin. So first I need to select it with the selector box and then I'm going to specify some properties here, just like duration, X and opacity. When I save the changes, I'm going to have this animation. You might think you can do the same thing without this timeline. Then why do we need this? As I said, the timeline is used for sequencing animation. So let's suppose that if I duplicate this and add here box 1, this is going to be box 2 and this is box 3. Save this and you will have the same animation to all these boxes. The box is in sync, but what I want to execute this animation one after another. I'm simply going to first select the first box with the class box 1, just like this. Then I'm going to select the second box with box 2 and I'm going to just add here a rotation 360 and then I'm going to use the third box just like this with box 3. And here I'm simply going to add X and Y property and with some easing function. Once the first animation finish, then that will start the second animation, and once the second finish, then we'll have the third animation. We have this sequence because of this timeline. You can notice all the animations run sequentially. Now let's suppose that you want to manage the timing of this animation. You can make the animation time even more perfect by using the position parameter. Define exactly where you want your animation to be placed into the timeline by using the optional position parameter. It tells the animation exactly where to insert the animation. It typically comes after the var parameter and it has a multiple behaviors. So here to the second box, I'm going to define where I want my animation to be placed into the timeline by using the optional position parameter. To specify that parameter, just after this object, here you pass a comma, and then in the double quote, you specify your position parameter. So if I pass here plus equal to 3, after 3 seconds, I'm going to have this animation. You can notice after 3 seconds, this is going to start this animation of the second box. So using this position parameter, I'm going to start this second animation after 3 seconds. That's upon you. You can specify any value here. So if I pass here 5, this is going to start the second element animation after 5 seconds. You can notice. Now you're not limited to delay the animation. You can overlap the animation as well. So let's suppose that you want to start the second animation before this first animation complete. So if I add here -5 or -3, save the changes, then you can notice before this first animation complete, the second animation is going to start and overlap the first animation. And you can pass any value here. That's upon you. Now, what if you want to overlap the first timeline animation with the third one? If I want to start the third timeline animation immediately when the first animation start, then I can use a label. So here, if I pass a comma to the first box and then specify first, then this is going to be a label for this first animation. So I'm going to label this first animation. Let me add here +2. So after 2 seconds, I'm going to execute this second animation. When the first animation start, immediately I'm going to start this third animation. So to do that, here I'm going to pass a comma and then specify the label of the first animation, this one. Now that's upon you. You can specify any label to this animation. You can see this will start the first and the third animation together. If you want to start the third animation after 1 second when the first animation start, then you can pass here plus equal to 1. So once the first animation start, after 1 second, I'm going to execute this third animation. When I save the changes, you can see after 1 second, I'm going to start this third animation. Now you can do the same and overlap this first animation as well. So if I pass here -sign equal to 2, save the changes, then that is going to overlap the first animation because this animation is going to execute before the execution of the first animation. So to see this animation, you will pass here an object and say delay 2 seconds or 4 seconds. Let me save the changes. After 2 seconds, you're going to have this third animation. After 4 seconds, you're going to have the first animation. And after 2 seconds, you're going to have the second animation. So you can handle and control this animation sequence with this timeline. Now you're not limited to use numbers only. You can use percentage as well. So if I pass here plus equal to 50%, save the changes. Now this is beyond the end of the timeline by 50% of the inserting animation's total duration, creating a gap. Or you can pass here 25% and then pass here minus. Save the changes. So this is going to overlap with the end of a timeline by 25% of the inserting animation's total duration. Now with this timeline, you can also call onComplete and onStart function. So you can add here onComplete and onStart. So when the animation starts, you will get this animation started message. And when the animation completes, you're going to have this onComplete message. With these functions, you will have even better control over your animations. There are many fun and exciting things you can do with the timeline. We will be exploring all of these possibilities in the upcoming chapters. GSAP can animate pretty much any CSS related properties of DOM elements. Commonly, animated properties are transform, opacity, and colors. But GSAP can handle anything you throw at it. So let's suppose that if I select a box and call border radius, height, and width. If I save the changes, I'm going to have this animation to this box. Let me get rid of it. I can animate and change the shape of this box. If you define a property that is non-animatable, like position absolute or border style solid, then GSAP will instantly apply the properties you want. So let's suppose that you have a border style dash. GSAP provides a built-in aliases for transform, which are cross-browser friendly and more performant and more reliable than animating the transform string. So let's suppose that you have a transform property to your box. So let me get rid of this. And if I here specify transform 50%, just like this, then this is going to animate this box with transform property. But instead of doing this translate with transform property, you can use X and Y. So here, instead of this transform, with GSAP, you can use X% and Y%. When I say the changes, you're going to get the same result. You can also use scale. So you pass here scale 2, then this is going to scale this box. You don't have to add transform and then add a scale to it. With just a simple properties, you can change and animate your box. Or as you know, we use a rotation to rotate this box like this, and we can use X property as translate X and Y property as translate Y. GSAP has sensibly default units. If you want to set a X property, you can just simply have to specify here a number instead of 100 pixel. You can append the unit value on the end and wrap the value in string. So let's suppose that you want to specify a particular unit to this X value. Then you can simply pass here double quote and then specify here 20 viewport width. You can use any unit of CSS. That's upon you. So this is some basics of CSS you need to understand before moving to the next topic. Let's understand what is plugin. Think of a plugin as a little boost for GSAP core. They give you the extra feature you need right when you need them, while keeping the core nice and streamlined. There are paid and free plugins out there in the GSAP website. Let's start with a draggable plugin. The draggable plugin offers an amazing simple way to make almost any DOM element draggable, tossable, and even flick scrollable using mouse and a touch event. How cool is that, right? So to use this plugin, you need first import and add this feature to your GSAP. To do that, you have to just copy the CDN and then you have to back to your project, and inside this index.html, you have to paste your plugin. So you have to call your script tag and call your plugin link, just like this. And then let me just change this division tag, and here I'm going to wrap this div inside a wrapper and a container. And back to the style.css, here I'm going to change some styling and add some styling to the container and to the box. And just for that, I'm going to back to the script, and here I'm going to use the draggable plugin. In the previous version of GSAP, you have to register your plugin, just like this. But if you're using the latest version of GSAP, you don't have to use this statement. GSAP will automatically register your plugin when you add them inside your code. So here, I'm just going to say draggable dot create, and we're going to create box animation. So we select the box 1 like this, pass here a comma, and inside an object type is going to be X, and then I'm going to specify here bounds container. You can easily drag the element from side to side inside a container. So if I save the changes, I can now move this element side to side. And if I use here Y, then I can move my element up and down. The type Y will work perfectly when the container has set height. So if you back to the style, then you will notice here I have here height 100 viewport height. If I comment this, then the Y property won't work because we don't have height to the container. When I have height to this container, then I can move this element in the Y direction. Now, if you pass here X and Y like this, you can move your element anywhere you want, just like this. You can actually achieve the same result just with the bound property as well. So if I comment this, then you're going to have the same result because type X and Y is the default value to the draggable. You can also pass here a rotation to this type. So if you pass here rotation like this, save the changes, then now you can rotate this division tag. You can notice. Now next, let's talk about the text plugin, this one. So let's copy the CDN and paste it right here. Instead of draggable, now I'm using text plugin, and then I'm going to change this div a little bit like this. So here we have an empty h1 heading tag, and then we have a h2 heading tag with some text. Let me save this back to the style. And then I'm going to add some styling. So I'm going to add a styling here, get rid of this button. Let me import the font family at the top and back to my script. And now here, I'm going to change the text of H1, this one. Currently, I don't have any text inside this H1. I'm going to add a text inside this H1. So here, I'm going to use text plugin to do that. So I'm going to say here GSAP. And first, I'm going to select the H1 heading tag. And then inside an object, here, I'm going to first select duration. It's going to be 2. And then call text. What I want here, I want to insert H1 tag. So I'm going to paste this text right inside this H1 heading tag. So now when I save the changes, you can see the GSAP will automatically insert and animate this text. Now if I select the second H1 heading tag, if I see here H2, then this is going to replace with this text. I get rid of this text right from here and save the changes. Then you will notice this will reverse the text. And now if I want to reverse this, I can use here from. You have this typewriter effect to this text. So there are a lot of things you can do with text. Just for now, let's explore the most popular plugin of GSAP, which is Scrollable. This one, the popular plugin of GSAP. So let's copy the CDN and paste it right here. And let me show you how to use this Scrollable plugin. So I'm simply going to call the container and call a box inside it. Save this file, and inside the style.css, I'm simply going to get rid of this H1 heading tag, select the container and the body. And now you'll notice I don't have my box here. When I scroll down, here I'm going to have my box because I specify here minimum height 300 viewport height to this body. So I'm going to have my box right down here. Now let me show you how you can use this Scrollable trigger plugin to animate this box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use here GSAP 2, then select the box, and then I'm going to add some properties. You need to first inform that you're using a scrollable property. You need to call here scroll trigger and then specify your targeted element. We are targeting this box division tag. So we pass here a class called .box. If you have ID box, then instead of this dot, you pass here hash like this. So now once you specify that you're using this plugin, then you need to specify what you want to do with your box when you scroll this bar. So what I want to rotate this box. So I'm going to call here rotation 360, and then I'm going to call here duration, which is going to be 2. Save the changes. And now when I scroll down, you can see I'm going to have my box rotation. The animation will start immediately when the element enters the viewport. This will happen only once. So when I reload the browser, when the element enters in the viewport, the animation will immediately start. Now you're not limited to use rotation, scale, or any other transform property. You can use any CSS property with this plugin, just like a background color. Save the changes, and now when I reload the browser and when the element is in the view, it will automatically apply these properties to this box. Or you can use X property if you want. That's upon you. So when you scroll down, it's going to rotate to the right side and then move up. Now what if you want to reverse this animation? At the top, instead of using just twins, I can use here constant LT, the timeline, and then say GSAP dot timeline, and in the timeline here I'm going to call this scroll trigger. So I'm going to call here scroll, and then I'm going to specify the trigger element, which is box. And now I can get rid of this scroll trigger right from here, and then instead of GSAP, now we have to use this TL here. Now you'll notice you will have this scrolling animation only once. If I add here scrub true like this, save the changes, when I scroll down, I'm going to have the scrolling animation like this. You can see we have the reverse animation. Now this is going to start the animation when the element is in the viewport, and end the animation when the element bottom touch to the top of the viewport. So when the box element bottom touch to this top, animation will automatically finish. Now you can control this with start property. If I add here start, so here we pass top and bottom. So when the top of the trigger element, it means the top of this box reaches the bottom of the viewport, then I'm going to start the animation. So you can notice when the top of this element reaches bottom of this viewport, then it will start the animation. And if I pass here end, then I can specify here bottom top. It means when the bottom of the element reaches to the top of this viewport, then I'm going to end this animation. So when I scroll down, and when the element bottom reach to this top, I'm going to end this animation. So this will end this animation right here. When you use start and end property, this means that as soon as the element comes into view, that is going to start the animation. You can handle this with number value as well. So instead of this bottom, if I add here 90%, save the changes and scroll down, the animation will start once 10% of the element becomes visible from the bottom. If I pass here 50%, then it will start the animation when the element reaches the 50% of the screen. You can see. Now you can do the same with this end property as well. If I pass here 50%, let me add here bottom. When the element is in the view, it will start the animation and end the animation when the element bottom reaches to the 50% of the viewport. So this is the 50% of the viewport. So this is going to end the animation right here. If I add here 20%, it will start the animation when the element is in the viewport, when the element is in the view, and end the animation when the element reaches the 20% of the viewport. So it will end right here. Now you can notice it's very confusing to understand where the animation is going to end and where the animation is going to start. To understand this, there is a simple, useful debugging property of GSAP, which is markers. If you add marker true, this is going to be a debugging property. So if you enable this property, so if you call marker true, when you save the changes, you're going to have some markers here. So the animation is going to start right here and end here. Let me show you. This is going to start the animation right here. You can notice here right at the bottom you have scroll start, and the animation is going to end right here. If I add here top and add here 50%, save the changes, when I scroll up, the animation is going to start right here at the 50% of the view like this and end right here. And if I add here 20%, save the changes, and now the animation is going to start right here and end right here. Let me show you. When I scroll up, the animation is going to start right here and immediately it's going to end right here when I reach to the bottom of the element, just like this. So this will end right here and start right here. Let's create a very simple example of progress bar. So let me back to the index. I'm going to add bar division tag like this. Save this file, back to the style. Here I'm going to add some style. I'm going to copy and paste some style here and style this bar element, this one. And then I'm going to back to the script and then get rid of these properties. And then here I'm going to call scrub true. And then I'm going to select the bar and width is going to be 100%. Now when I scroll down, you can see we have this progress bar right up here. I'm just going to increase the width of this progress bar with this 220. So if you back to the style, then you will notice we have a fixed position to this bar and the width is going to be 0. I'm just going to increase the width of this bar when I scroll down. So I'm just using here a scroll trigger plugin to do that. If I change this scrub to 3, then you will get an amazing scroll bar. You can notice you have some lazy scroll bar here. Now you have to experiment with these values and create different animations with GSAP. You can find all the plugins and examples inside this gsap.com website. If you click on showcase, here you have different showcases and different animations you can do with GSAP. Here you can do all the cool animations you can do with GSAP. If you want more videos like this, then check out this video.